The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Subaru Productions.
100!
100! Holy shit, it just kind of occurred to me.
No, I'm not wearing the 100 shirt. It needs to be washed. I'm an adult, I swear. But yeah, episode 100. We have made it 100 episodes. 4 more, and we get 2 years worth of 2 years over 52 weeks.
But we record every 2 weeks for these episodes.
Shut up.
Okay.
I'm talking about if you watch every one of our episodes from 1 to 104.
Once a week.
Yeah, once a week.
I was actually trying to do the math on the ride here of how did it take us 4 years to get to 100 episodes?
Actually, technically no, because we did a couple of months. But still, go ahead.
Yeah, because we did months of stuff.
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of like 0.1s, 0.2s, etc., etc.
0.5s and shit. Yeah.
Blame Decker Ranger. And a couple other things.
No, blame us for thinking we should have separate videos for all the movies. Because
No, in that case, it worked.
in that case, yes, but
It'll work for X8 too.
Also, by the way, real quick, if you have questions about like how many movies there are for a certain season, reach out to our Twitter or go to Discord. Somebody private message DM Sam's Twitter asking how many Decker Ranger movies there were.
That's weird. It's not being weird.
She doesn't know.
Well, I don't think they were being weird on purpose. I think it was just a mistake.
Yeah, just throwing that out there. But anyway.
It's an honest mistake.
No, it is.
No harm, no foul.
Which is why I'm just saying, please just reach out to the Tokucast Twitter,
But
in our Discord. Hell, you could reach out to us on Instagram.
I mean, I'm looking at it now. Episode 1 of Tokucast came out March 13th, 2016. It's been a while.
Been a while.
We're coming up on 5 years.
We're coming up on 5 years. Also, how much has happened in the 4 years since we started this channel?
A lot for all of us, I think.
Yeah. You got married.
Yeah. I bought a house. I
Yeah.
had to fix that house.
Bought a whole car.
Me too.
Yeah. I just saved money otherwise.
And a lot of really depressing stuff happened to me that I'd rather not get into right now.
But we love you.
I love you too.
Yay.
And I love all of you. For those who have supported me and been very nice
You
to
sure
me
you want to
throughout
do
the
this movie?
years.
It's really depressing.
I don't think so.
Okay. Godzilla!
But
Yes.
as stated before, we are here.
At the beginning.
Episode 100. You could say the one that started it all. 1954, Godzilla, directed by Ishiro Honda. You have no idea how happy I was to do something for Tokucast that not only was less than 2 hours long, but I owned. Because I own the Criterion Blu-ray, and it's a wonderful disc. I would highly recommend it if you are a fan of this film.
You were just happy that it was so more convenient.
Oh, you have no idea. Just turn it on my Panasonic Blu-ray player, pop the disc in. I watched it twice this week. Once for the movie, and then once I rewatched the commentary as well.
I watched it on HBO Max. I also watched Bucket List, but I digress.
Any good?
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh, really? Because I've never seen it.
I think it's a really underrated movie, but that is not after.
That'll be episode 101.
Actually, speaking of which, episode 101,
Sorry, go ahead.
you won't be here for.
Is it Ultraman?
It's Ultraman Cosmos.
Sorry, I want a gif of Morgan Freeman skydiving going, "I hate your rotten guts," because it makes me laugh every time. Anyway.
Now, for as long as I can remember, the Godzilla, he terrorized Japan.
Godzilla! Gojira!
Godzilla, Gojira,
Whatever.
the kaiju that's... Well, either one is correct.
Yeah, I know. This is what started it all.
Do we want to go through this with the plot, or do we want to just talk about the movie?
Let's just talk about the movie in this case.
Because the plot's relatively simple.
It is relatively... Well, you know, to give a brief summary for anyone who has yet to see this film. First off, like, I highly recommend this movie. You should absolutely watch it.
I really do. It's a very good movie.
Just know it is made in 1954 and it shows.
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that, but there are, like, I'm mainly talking about some of the editing. there are some moments.
There are some very old Hollywood-esque style editing going
Like
on.
there's a girl.
I mean, I think this is a great jump. What great way we can just jump into this.
Yeah.
The effects. Some of them look great.
Some of them look great for 1954.
Yeah.
And some of them would still pass.
Some of them, yeah, that hand puppet looks a little iffy.
Especially when it looks directly at the camera.
Because the scene where you see Godzilla for the first time, which is an amazing scene.
It is iconic.
But where he comes up over the mountain, that's a hand puppet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a hand puppet, and the jaw is a little like slack. In case you noticed.
Yeah, there are some moments like that, but the basic plot point is that this entire movie is a metaphor.
Yeah.
This entire movie is a metaphor. Godzilla is the atomic bomb that we dropped on Japan.
He's not so much the atomic bomb, but nuclear power as a whole.
Yeah, he's the result.
The result
of the atomic, because they talk about Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
This is
9 years later.
Yes, but more importantly than that, at the beginning of the movie, we have the Ikomaru, which is a Japanese freighter. They get attacked by Godzilla, and everyone involved with it dies. Mm. In the same way that when we tested the hydrogen bomb, there was a Japanese fishing boat, which is on display in Japan. Like, you can go to a museum and you can see this thing. It's there on display. The radiation has since died from it. So like the boat's there. You can go look at it, which I find absolutely fascinating. The Daigo Fukuryu Maru, which is Lucky Dragon number 5. And it was like, oh, hey, no one's out there fishing right now because they're doing all these bomb tests. We can go out there and we can get ourselves a great hull of tuna. This will be great. It'll be easy. We'll just be in, out. We'll be home in time for lunch.
Yeah.
And the hydrogen bomb went off. They were close enough that like they didn't hear the bomb for another 8 minutes until after it went off. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
That like it was like the sun blew. It was just this bright flash of light. The blast didn't actually hit them, but the radiation is what got to them. And
I was about to say, because I'm looking at pictures of it right
David
now.
Kalat mentions in his commentary on the
it's relatively intact
on the Criterion disc. Well, what's the thing? Because the blast didn't hit the boat; it was just the radiation.
See, I didn't know that. So I was looking at the pictures and I'm like, are you sure?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
No,
it's there. You can go see it.
It's Nagasaki and Hiroshima are still feeling effects of that of those drops to this day.
But one of the men on the Lucky Dragon number 5, I think he was a radio man. He died a very slow, painful death of radiation poisoning, and his final words were, I'm very sorry if I'm misquoting them, but I hope I am the last victim of the nuclear bomb. Ooh. It was something like that, and even though they weren't actually killed in the blast, the radiation and the power of this weapon still managed to kill them. I mean, in Godzilla, we have one of the I think his name is Masaji, one of the men on the Ikomaru. He washes up on shore on the raft on that island, and he is killed by Godzilla when he comes ashore. So if you come into contact with this, you're dead. There's nothing that can save you.
That is definitely something that, because I'm not really the biggest fan of Godzilla. I've seen like maybe 2 movies, counting this one, 3 counting this one.
Fair enough.
So I did not I was watching this, and I guess they dropped this plot point off of that anybody who comes into contact with Godzilla or is part of is in the city that Godzilla attacks will succumb to radiation poisoning. They will be infected with radiation, even if they just by being in his presence, he leaks it. Which I guess they kind of dropped that off after a while.
It depends on what you're watching.
As the movie,
as the movies kind of progressed, because
you have to. It also depends on what context you're looking at, because in this one, Godzilla is chaos. He's nuclear energy incarnate, just walking around and just causing havoc wherever he goes. And then you look at Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, where he's
like the hero.
He's a heroic protector, and versus Mothra, he's the bad guy.
Yeah,
Mothra is like Mother Earth.
Yeah. I want to talk about that at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But
just Godzilla in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So
back to the movie.
So it turns out that Godzilla is a prehistoric creature of sorts. What?
Sorry, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but there's something about this movie that really made me laugh. It's a little thing. It's something a lot of people might not notice. But when Professor Yamane is doing the slideshow, and he shows everyone when we're learning that Godzilla is a dinosaur that has been radiated and resurrected by the powers of nuclear weaponry, we see he shows like drawings of dinosaurs, what like scientists at the time thought dinosaurs would look like, and I'm like, oh, these are so outdated. Because you look at the T-Rex and it's way too fat, it's standing the wrong way. It's a little thing, but it made me smile.
But to me, I saw that and I just thought how far we've come.
Yeah. I thought the same thing. I thought
too.
the same thing too.
I just because you also got to remember there was a time where we thought dinosaurs' vision was based on movement. We thought that they were primarily like lizard creatures, but it turns out they had feathers and evolved into birds and stuff like that. So,
and it also depends on which dinosaur.
now let's not even get to talk about how the Jurassic Park Velociraptor is just a Hollywood monster, because actual Velociraptors are about the size of chickens.
I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've ruined your childhood.
It's just one of those things.
What we know is the Velociraptor.
We digress.
Talk for another day.
It's just one of those things.
I like dinosaurs.
Where we notice, especially when you go back and watch something as old as this.
Yeah.
This movie's almost 70 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but it is a prehistoric creature that has been affected by all the radiation and nuclear weapons, and is essentially is essentially just trying to wreck shit because he's angry. So he washes. Sorry.
I didn't interpret it that he's angry. He's just chaos walking.
Yeah.
He's
at
just
that point.
he's just like, I'm gonna walk around
But
and do
it's
stuff.
hard to be chaotic and not also invoke the anger of that, the emotion of anger.
I disagree.
I feel like people who are chaotic, other than some people that I know on the internet who are doing it just for the lulz, there seems to be a lot of aggression behind what he does, is what I'm getting at.
It's kind of hard to get away from that when you're a giant monster.
I guess.
But
It's the whole thing is like that first ship gets destroyed. A fishing ship finds like 3 survivors. Then that ship gets destroyed. And then one person ends up making it on the shore.
Yep.
And then it's like after it starts becoming a public thing. And this is one of the scenes I love the most in this movie. When it's those people inside, I guess, the courtroom or the lab auxiliary room that they're in. And there's this one guy surrounded by like all his followers saying that we shouldn't let the people know about this. And then there's the woman saying, how dare you? We have to know about it. I love the anger that goes on.
Had this scene come out a few years earlier, that scene probably would have been censored.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is post-war Japan.
Yeah.
I mean,
when the U.S. was occupying Japan, we placed strict censorship on.
It got censored.
Here.
The American version, yeah.
That wasn't censorship.
Cutting out scenes.
That's not censorship.
That's just American
that's an edit.
1950s.
That's an edit. That's not censorship.
I think I kind of interpret cutting out the final scene of, if we continue experimenting with nuclear weapons, we may create another Godzilla, being cut from the movie altogether as censorship.
I disagree. Censorship implies that's a much higher power is telling them to cut it out.
That's how I interpreted that.
I'm actually going to agree with Matt in this case solely because of where America was
in 1956?
Yeah.
Well,
Cold War is just starting.
Fair enough, but also we're talking about the Japanese version.
Yeah.
No, I know.
In Japan, that scene would have been cut out because I'm talking about real censorship here. The censorship that we placed on Japan, where we wanted them to be a democracy and we could not show democracy in any kind of negative light.
Yeah.
And that's what that scene would have showed. It's like, well, we can't show people arguing with each other. That would be wrong.
There's nothing about democracy that involves arguing.
Or discourse.
I absolutely love that scene.
It's a great scene.
That is an amazing scene.
It's a great scene, and we see it filtered out later. I mean, like, even throughout the movie, when we have Professor Yamane and Ogata, you know, the man who is in love with my daughter, who my daughter wants to marry, and I want him, it's like, get out of my house, get out of my life, because you want to kill Godzilla. I want to study it. But, great scene.
So, throughout the course of Godzilla's destruction, we meet a character who I could have sworn would have been a Bond villain. he tried to.
Because of the eye patch?
Because the eye patch, and the fact that he has a secret lab in his basement. And he's got the most Bond weapon killing thing ever. I put this in water, all fish die. What?
All the oxygen.
The oxygen destroyer. Which would later make Destroyer.
I swear to God, this was a Bond villain waiting to happen.
He pretty much was. He was a prototype Bond villain.
Like,
but he's not.
Walked on screen,
but he's not evil.
No, he's not. Which is a great subversion of expectations.
I mean, you got the eye patch Emil Largo, and
he walked on the screen. And I went, all right. So when do you secretly reveal that you're working with Godzilla, or you created Godzilla?
You're working with Godzilla. Hey, I got a great idea. No, wait! I got a great idea. Listen up.
Yeah. I will say though. And I love the little silent moments that they have in this movie, like I talked about with the people earlier on the train. The people on the train talking about
how the mother holding her children.
The mother holding. Oh,
we're gonna be with Daddy soon.
My soul left.
The American version butchered.
I am aware of the
We'll
changes,
talk about that
but
again.
I actually didn't watch that for this review. I only watched the Japanese one.
I watched the Japanese version, but then I went online and watched other reviews of this movie to kind of. Because I'm really bad at putting my thoughts together. So I'm hearing other people's thoughts and I kind of agree or disagree with that. But he played a clip of the American version of that scene and there's so much music and sound effects going on.
Music, sound effects, and also the dialogue is taken out during that scene. Mm-hmm. You also have to keep in mind who's making it, what are the changes they're making for the audience. Because Ishiro Honda, who directed this movie, he put his own experiences into this. Because he survived World War II.
No, I get it.
He served in the Japanese Imperial Army during World War II, and listening to the commentary track and hearing what he had said about the country was in ashes, literally and figuratively, the country was in ashes after the end of the war, and he had seen it firsthand on so many occasions, and just what it must have been like to live through that.
If you did.
Which he did.
Yeah.
What it must have been like to live through that and then to...
I was saying if you were lucky.
Rework it into a context like a monster movie. And getting back to what you said about it being a metaphor, because, you watched the Overly Sarcastic Productions Kaiju video, and at the beginning when Red says, when is a monster not a giant monster? When it's a giant metaphor. One of the things I love about this movie is that if you want to interpret it as a metaphor, you can. But if you just want to enjoy it as a monster smashing stuff, it works on that level too.
Yeah, that
is the intention, but you don't have to look at it that way. And I think that's one of that is the mark of great symbolism. Is when you don't need the symbolism in order for it to work.
I will say, I watched this not through the lens of monster movie. I watched this through the lens of gigantic nuclear war arms race as a metaphor. I watched this through the lens of a metaphor.
At one point in my life, I was aware that Godzilla started off as that, but when I started this movie, that had slipped my mind. But then as the movie kept going, I'm like, I literally just had oh yeah!
And it's like, you can sort of tell how this movie is more or less going to end up ending.
Movies like this are the reason why I still can't watch Chernobyl.
Yeah. But you can sort of tell how this movie is going to end up ending when Serizawa does the experiment with the fish and the oxygen destroyer and says pretty much that this is more powerful than any nuclear.
I love that scene so much.
Because you can tell how you can tell how this movie's going to end. And I'm just like, it's such great tension.
It's great tension, and one of the things I love about this movie is the way it leans into the aspect of horror where what you don't see is sometimes scarier than what you do see.
Because it takes like 20 minutes.
It takes a while. Not just that it takes a while for Godzilla to show up, but the first time Serizawa shows Emiko the oxygen destroyer,
she screams.
It's not just that she screams. You don't see what it does.
No,
you don't even see what it does.
Biggest thing.
The clouds. Your vision is clouded by
the vision is clouded, skeletons. But no, that's not what happens.
No, there's no skeletons in this.
That doesn't come in until later. Yeah. It isn't until later.
I saw fish skeletons.
That happens later when they flash back to it when she tells Ogata what it is that it was. In the scene where because she goes there to tell him like, I'm sorry, Serizawa, I can't marry you. I'm in love with Ogata. And he's like, look, before you go, I need to show you this.
Actually, she doesn't even get that out.
She doesn't get it out
Yeah.
because the weak all suffer. I believe not the weak, but the all suffering woman. This is a very old Japanese trope. Which
It's a very old
which I learned from another thing I learned from the commentary. Ogata, and Emiko, and Serizawa are all archetypes from old Japanese literature. The weak man, which is Ogata
in this case.
the all-suffering woman, which is Emiko, and then I forget the exact name, but it's the outcast hero, which is Serizawa. But the scene with the oxygen destroyer, where it's just the bubbles come out, we cut back to them, and it cuts to a tight shot in their faces, and Emiko just screams and recoils in terror. We don't know what it is she saw. But whatever it was really scared her, and then when you finally find out, it's like, just yikes.
That's terrifying.
And then getting to the end of the movie, one of the things that I think is so brilliant about it is, we invent the nuclear bomb is invented to give us that edge to help us win the war. And then
I know, just from my understanding of history, before we even dropped either of those bombs,
right.
Germany had already surrendered. And we were asking Japan to, and they said no. We were asking for their unconditional surrender. They said no. We dropped a bomb. And then just for shits and giggles, because we're American, this is how we fucking do it. We dropped a second one for shits and giggles.
I'm also... Let me rephrase. Inventing them because... It's like the space race.
No,
we have to invent this first before the other ones do, so that we can have the edge.
Because whoever gets it first wins.
Pretty much, and we do that, and then Serizawa inventing Godzilla is the nuclear bomb. What defeats him? The oxygen destroyer. Who's going to invent what's going to beat the oxygen destroyer? How long before that gets weaponized? And it's just. Yes, it's like, yes, we were able to beat that monster. We created another one, and how long until this cycle ends?
I do want to talk about
Will it ever end?
Really quickly, because we are getting more towards the end of the movie there. I love the scene when they're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build a really long fence, an electric fence, to stop Godzilla coming out of the Tokyo Bay. That doesn't work. We're going to try to shoot it with tanks. That doesn't work. Godzilla just radioacts everything. Just breathes on everything. Kills a whole bunch of people. You end up going to the hospital, which is overflowing. And people are in there. Children are in there just radioactive, burning to death. It's terrifying. Also, there's a scene I want to talk about earlier that happened.
Is it the one where the girl's mother dies and then she just screams?
When they carry the body away. Well, that is in the hospital scene.
I love that scene. Really, it's terrifying.
That scene got me in my spine.
Yeah, it's terrifying. But I want to talk about something just because of the fact that I feel like it reflects what's going on now. A whole bunch of ships are dead. The helicopter that came in got trampled over by Godzilla. All right, young people, we're not going to worry about that. We're going to go out into a boat and dance. And then Godzilla comes up. It pretty much kills everybody there.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, if this ain't a metaphor for right now, I don't know what is. Just like, y'all will do anything to try and have a good time in the face of danger until danger hits you. And it hits like a nuclear bomb to the face. That's pretty much what he is.
Literally.
I'm just like, it's cyclical. Because that was a real mirror to the world. Just then to now. That's a thing. That's what's happening.
That's still a thing.
It's still a thing. Learn. But it seems like you don't.
Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Again and again until Godzilla shows up and kills you. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I'm sitting here like, I just thought about it. I was like, this is right now. How dare they?
That's the mark of good science fiction.
Yeah.
But this is a very somber movie because to get to the end of the movie, we get to, after Godzilla is defeated with the oxygen destroyer.
Well, we had to talk about what happens before that.
That's fair. Go for it.
When they ask Serizawa to use it initially, he says no.
No, because of course not.
He understands what's happening. He understands that, like you said earlier, something will beat that.
Mm-hmm.
And he really doesn't want that to happen. I love the scene so much after he finally goes ahead and agrees to do so, he burns his notes.
Yeah.
And Emiko just looks at it and starts breaking down crying. I hate the fact that she does that. That's like her entire character. But at the same time, you're sort of supposed to, I'm not going to say identify with her, but see it through her lens.
You're supposed to empathize with her. It's the all-suffering woman.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be like, oh, kind of like that.
You understand, and this is just really good setting up dramatic irony, because you understand at that point what Serizawa is planning to do.
Mm-hmm.
After he starts burning his notes, what is the next step to make sure that nobody ends up building something to beat the oxygen?
Get rid of the mind that has the notes.
Get rid of the mind that has the notes. So when he and Ogata go down after they find Godzilla and actually put out the oxygen destroyer, he sends Ogata back up and stays down there besides Godzilla and sets off the oxygen destroyer, killing himself and Godzilla. I love this movie.
And the point that I was getting to is that after that moment, no one cheers, no one's happy, no one's dancing.
Yeah.
Everyone's just...
They salute.
They salute the fallen hero that has sacrificed himself for the good of everyone. And we get that line that says, if we continue experimenting with radiation, we could create another Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then the credits. Lesser movies would... There are lesser movies that exist.
Oh, I know.
That would typically have most of the people cheering, and then the people who actually knew that the person.
I mean, it's the end of Armageddon.
That's exactly what I was getting to.
It's the end of Armageddon, where
like
everyone
all the
around.
massive people are like, yeah, we did it.
We did it! All right,
And
rah rah, USA.
And she's just sitting there going, I lost my father, but USA. I'm like, oh my god.
But you have permission to shake the hand of the bravest man I've ever known, and I like Armageddon. I do. I like that movie. I like that movie quite a bit.
It's a fun movie.
I love that line. There's a lot of great stuff in that movie.
But that moment.
But you also have to remember different movie, different circumstances.
I also
one of them is Michael Bay being Michael Bay. The other one is let's do something a little more.
One is
thought-provoking.
One is early 2000s, I think.
90s.
Ooh, even worse.
Yeah, you can sort of tell because I love the scene like after. Like, no, it's not. It's like right before Serizawa does it, and like people are still running around. But the professor, you focus on the professor, and he sits down because he realizes what's about to happen. And I'm sitting here like, this is amazing.
So much thought was put into a movie that could just be written off as a guy in a rubber suit blowing up models.
And again, if that's all you want it to be, that's all it needs to be.
But let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about the suit and the models and how this was the pioneer. Of the tokusatsu genre.
I want to talk a little bit about the man behind it all, and that's AG Tsuburaya.
May he rest in peace.
Yes.
Who was in charge of all the special effects and whatnot.
You are the OG. I don't use that phrase a lot, but Jesus, you are.
Well, maybe in terms of Japan, yes. In terms of what we know as Japanese special effects now. But the thing, because originally it wasn't, like, he wanted to do a different movie at first. Like,
it's supposed to be like an octopus?
Yeah, he really, because he was a huge fan of King Kong. He was a huge fan of King Kong.
Stop motion.
And he wanted to do stop motion like that.
But it was going to cost a fortune and take forever.
No, it's not just that. It's they wanted, because eventually they decided, well, let's do this instead. And the event, ideas got shunted around, scripts got changed. Long story short, we wound up with Godzilla. He was talking to the studio head, and he really wanted to do effects like they were in King Kong with stop motion. And he did like calculations and was studying how long it would take him to do it. He's like,
7 years?
It was 7 years.
7 years.
And the studio's, the exec's response was, he laughed and said, what else you got? So they fell back on the old man in a suit.
And then he waited another, this is 54, 11 years to bring out Ultra Q and then Ultraman the year after.
But
this is...
Tsuburaya was such a perfectionist that... And some of the effects in this, like, there is a scene when Serizawa, Ogata, and Emiko, they go to the island where Godzilla first attacks, and you see a big footprint in the background.
Yeah.
And it's a matte painting that's blended in so seamlessly.
I didn't even notice that.
It's great. So some of the effects look great. Sometimes, yeah, you can see a wire. Yeah, the puppet's a little slack-jawed, but it's still it's a good suit. And the two men in the suit, Haruo Nakajima and Katsumi Tezuka.
Yeah.
The two men who brought him to life.
Two men I will respect till the day I die. Because
Haruo Nakajima lost 20 pounds doing this. They would drain about a cup of his sweat from the suit every day.
How much did the suit weigh again?
I don't remember exactly, but it was a lot.
It got up. I know it got up to. I believe what I heard was it got up to about 140 degrees in there.
Yeah, they would repeatedly have. I believe in the words of the commentary track, it was like
the Godzilla suit was originally brown and weighed over 200 pounds.
220 pounds. Holy shit.
It would be heat exhaustion. It would be, passing out, all this other stuff. And that was on a good day.
Yeah.
In the words of David Collette, that was on a good day. Oh my goodness. And
now they have fans built into them.
If fans built into them, some of them look really, really good.
And they don't weigh 200 pounds.
Well, they probably weigh a lot, but...
Probably just nowhere near that much.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do the original Ultraman one day.
Oh, at some point.
I want to see it like 11 years later, 12 years later.
12 years later and with a television budget.
Yeah.
Because this at the time was one of the most expensive movies Japan had ever produced.
Eventually we'll do Show Ultraman, because I do want to see just...
Eventually we'll do all the originals. Ultraman, Kamen Rider, Super Sentai.
Yeah. This is just one of those things where I'm just like...
A lot of them, it's a case of waiting for them to be subbed.
And a lot of them
and
is
scheduling.
just waiting to have time to watch all of them.
Because a lot of them are really long.
Kamen Rider's what, 90 episodes?
90s, Super Sentai,
Go Ranger.
like 80 something.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just one of those things. I want to see what, especially because we've watched this now, what was it like 12 years later doing Ultraman?
Because a lot can happen in 12 years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else to talk about this movie. I have a lot to say about
the score. Yeah. Akira Ikufube's score.
Effects. Just the
roar.
audio.
The roar. The very first thing you hear after that Toho logo, you hear that boom, boom, and then the title rolls up. We get that title card, and then you just hear Godzilla's. You hear that roar for the first time. Rubbing a leather glove on the strings of a cello.
Yeah, I was about to say.
That is ingenuity.
And then of course his.
I mean, a lot of productions were doing stuff.
Akira
like
Ikufube, he was primarily Ifukube, sorry. Ifukube. He was a self-taught classical musician. Was what he was mainly known for. He hadn't really done any film work prior to this. And he composed this entire score without seeing Godzilla. Because Tsuburaya was such a perfectionist that by the time a cut of the movie was screened for him, all of the visual effects shots were not in the movie. Because Tsuburaya did not want anyone to see them before he had perfected them. So what would happen is it would be like live action footage. It would just cut to black. Tsuburaya would stand up in front of the auditorium and just explain and act out what was going on. Which I love. I find that to be really, really just interesting and very cool that he would do that.
And we had to talk about just like probably one of the most legendary things that came out of this movie. Godzilla's theme.
Yeah.
I love specifically the dun 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 dun, which has been used from various songs to just other movies, sometimes in Ultraman because that's what they do, and I love just that, just how long that is pervaded.
When I saw Shin Godzilla in the theater, and that music came on for the first time, the theater erupted in applause. It was incredible. Just to hear that coming out of theater speakers in a new Godzilla movie, a really good one at that, it was awesome. And like you said, just how that theme has persisted through the years and that brass comes in bum bum and then bum 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 bum.
I'm not gonna lie, I zoned out for a minute because I just thought of a really stupid joke.
What is that?
I could have done with this video, and I'm a little disappointed I didn't.
Well,
which is bashing this movie and saying that it's much worse than the 1998 American Godzilla movie.
It's too late now. You had a point earlier. What were you going to say?
I'm trying to remember. Because I got distracted by That's a Lot of Fish. Fuck that movie.
We can review that next.
God, no.
I'd love to review that at some point.
That movie so much.
I really want to review that.
To quote a Nostalgia Critic video I just rewatched yesterday because they did a whole episode on Fox Kids. It's like, hey guys, remember that movie? That's a lot of fish. They made a show out of it. Oh God!
I know.
So
by all accounts, it was much better.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
that was actually a good cartoon.
No, it was, but doesn't change.
That's a lot of fish.
That's a lot of fish.
I mean, he's right, you know.
Anyway, I think one thing I was gonna say is one of my favorite things about watching old science fiction shows, movies, and stuff is seeing the behind the scenes stuff, like how we made the noise with the rubber glove on the strings of the bass, and like how the TARDIS noise from Doctor Who is house keys on piano strings. Yeah. Just and that's how they get the TARDIS's
Star Wars, it's metal hitting a wire.
Yeah, it's just stuff like that. It's just really, I think it's really cool how just random
sounds come from random places.
Like, how much iconic sounds come from the most random shit on the, like, fuck, what do I have in the room?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was the same with Doctor Who, because Doctor Who had
There was a great documentary called Making Waves on Amazon Prime, which is about the history of cinematic sound that is highly recommended if you want to go a little more into that.
I need to watch that one. I need to watch the gaming one on Netflix. I want to rewatch An Adventure in Space and Time now, because that's essentially a documentary. I would recommend you watching that. I think you'd enjoy it.
I know of it. It's a movie about the production of the first Doctor Who.
A dramatization of how Doctor Who got started, but it kind of just essentially turns into
a cinema, rather, I guess in this case, just a television documentary about this.
Piss in the nigger.
Yeah.
And there's a really great moment at the end. Where the first Doctor...
Well, don't tell me.
It doesn't matter to you as much as not as a Doctor.
Well, I'd still...
Still wants to see it.
If you want me to watch it, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
I'll see if
at some point, maybe we'll see.
I'll check to see if it's on HBO. Because all of Doctor Who is... But
yeah, this movie, though...
Now, I am infamous on this channel for hating old things.
I know. I'm going to be honest. One of the things I was most curious about when reviewing this was how you were going to react to it. Because I know aesthetics are your thing, and I know you don't like looking at something if you don't like how it looks, particularly if it's older and doesn't hold up as well.
It did not bother me as much in this movie.
Okay.
Because of everything else in the action
Everything
movie.
else in this movie made it, and the fact that, just like with other Godzilla movies, Godzilla really isn't the focus for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
story and characters.
It's story and characters.
As I've said before, because, I mean, this makes me think...
I'm also just glad it wasn't a bad dub. If it was a bad dub, I would have been out.
I don't like dubs of live action movies.
Me neither. Can't do it. There were some moments I just kind of went, oh god. Like every time Godzilla looked directly at the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Dirt. Very dirt. There was a moment in editing where I can't remember who it was. A girl's sitting at a table. She moves back to get up, and then it cuts to her already standing up and turning around. Just like, ooh, that's a miss. But I kind of
gloss over it.
Yeah.
I will say,
because it was one moment. It wasn't throughout the whole movie.
I mean, this is kind of like the magic of editing. You see her get up to stand up, and then we cut to her.
No, but there was it was literally from here to here. Cut. There was no in between. Like Marcus and I argued about last week. There was a scene missing.
I want to talk about Godzilla in this movie compared to how they sort of switched the
tone.
Not so much the tone, but the narrative, especially when it ends up coming to like nuclear weapons.
Well, that's tone as well, I think.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to both.
I think it does. I think both does factor into it.
We start with this embodiment of chaos, and by the way, I thought of a better wording of my aggression argument earlier, which is that it seems like nature itself is embodied in trying to fight back at this.
Not for this one, no.
No, that's more Mothra.
That's more Mothra. That's also more Pacific Rim.
Yeah,
I guess I need to watch the Mothra one. But
Pacific Rim, and that they're analogous for climate change.
I have seen Pacific Rim. Did not get that out of it, but I was also just going, giant robots, yay!
But it's like, compare it to Godzilla now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, nuclear weapons are good. We need Godzilla to come in and just start fighting everything for us. Compared to then.
It depends on the movie.
Well, you look at Godzilla King of the Monsters, the most recent one, where...
How was that?
Did you watch the ranking of that I did?
No, sorry.
I hated it.
I'm sorry. I think I was there. I was on the couch.
You may have been, but Godzilla King of the Monsters, yeah, I hated that movie. A lot of people like it. That's fine. You like what you like. All art is subjective. But the way Godzilla is, it's the nuclear bomb, but he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Kind of. Because Ghidorah's worse.
That is exactly
it really comes. It's if you want to have giant monsters punch things, then just have them punch things.
Yeah.
Don't try to shove a message down our throats.
I don't think it's not so much that they're shoving a message down our throat.
Is that the metaphor doesn't work as well?
The metaphor. If you try to take this metaphor and apply it to that, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you look at Godzilla King of the Monsters as just monsters are fighting because that is what the movie is. Then it works. Yeah. If you try to take the metaphor from this film and other films as well and try and apply it to that, it falls completely apart.
Which Godzilla movie was the one where he flies across the screen with his tail touching the ground, doing like a?
That's Godzilla versus Hedorah, the smog monster. And that's from the show era.
The movies start. I'm going to say.
I also like that one.
After this one, they sort of start to. The metaphor is lost after this one.
For the most part, I mean,
for the most part, until Mothra, really.
With Mothra, it's kind of like Mother Earth versus man-made destruction.
Yeah,
and like the power of the human spirit fighting back against evil
and singing
because
Mothra.
Well, they have lovely voices.
Yeah, but I'm saying and singing because Mothra.
Yeah, it's just part of who.
When you have Mothra singing with two twin fairy girls.
Not in King of the Monsters, but they did use that in the score when adult Mothra shows up at the end.
Girls after the most recent episode of Saber, thanks.
And
but yeah,
I didn't watch it, but anyway,
Muscle Fairy.
But you also look at. I think Shin Godzilla. We changed the metaphor where it's not. It's a satire about how the Japanese system of government works.
Mm.
In that, like, there's so much red tape and there's so many things that have to change hands and so much confirmation that is needed.
And quadruple size.
Pretty much before we can so much as shoot Godzilla in the face or even fly a helicopter towards him. And there's that, and then we have Godzilla, 1984 or Return of Godzilla. As it was released in Japan, where it's more or less the same thing as the 1954 one, but with a little bit more of a sci-fi twist.
Yeah.
Little more science fiction-y, updated for the times. So yeah, I mean, Godzilla, he's a monster of many faces throughout the years, but it doesn't have to be one way or the other.
Yeah.
For this movie, they made it with that in mind. You can enjoy it one way, you can enjoy it a different way. That's a great thing about art, is it can all be interpreted different ways. And in later entries, they just wanted to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either.
I still think this is probably my favorite of all of the Godzilla movies, though.
Mm.
Simply because of the fact that I viewed it through the eyes of the metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
And how strong that metaphor was tied to the time period that they were in. And this is just straight up, this is the after. And this is what could possibly happen. Something bigger will always come along. Whether it be Godzilla, an oxygen destroyer, or something else. I love this movie. It is a definite recommend for me. If you have not seen the original Godzilla, please go watch the original Godzilla.
Absolutely. Definitely check out the Criterion disc if you get a chance. If you're like me and you're a curmudgeon who still buys physical media. At least when it comes to movies.
But yeah, I think that's the end of it.
I think that about sums it up.
Yeah, that's a hell of a 100th episode.
Yes. We will now return to our regular...
we will now return to our regularly scheduled children TV program.
No, we will now return to our regular college level course in 101 with Ultraman Cosmos.
I'm not excited. I'm going to be honest. I'm not excited.
Oh, is it bad?
I haven't watched it yet.
It's okay.
It's 65 episodes.
Holy
Yeah,
fuck.
it's just really long.
Well,
It's
you
not-
got...
I got my work cut out for me, don't I,
Well,
folks?
you had to break.
I want another one.
That's usually how it is with vacations.
After Cosmos, Key Ranger.
Month, I believe. Or is that something else? No, that's X8.
No, we won't be doing a Key Ranger month. We will have.
But we will be reviewing Q Ranger.
It might take us a month to do a review of every character in Q Ranger, but who knows?
But Q Ranger will end up having 2 weeks. Just of course, the second one won't be any comparison. It's the. I have to make sure, but they do have like 2 movies that I actually want to talk about when it comes to that one because they're good. I like the Q Ranger movies.
It's still in the works. I'm still trying to figure out the kinks. I'm trying to get essentially what is a pilot episode of a new show off the ground after the Q Ranger review. But I need I need Marcus's help since I don't have a computer that works.
And your pitch.
Oh yeah, my Toku pitch. Whenever I can finally get all the details ironed out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
And by the way, I'm not doing a full cast for Q Ranger Toku pitch. No offense, guys.
None
Fuck
offense.
right off.
None offense taken. The only reason I did mine was because I thought other people would want to hear it.
But yeah.
Though I will admit, I will have Dante Bosco voicing somebody.
Fair enough.
Don't care. Don't care who. Dante Bosco Besto.
Please join us on all
As
of the
himself.
things. And thank you once again for all of our patrons.
And thank you guys for sticking with us.
For those who have, for anyone who has, yes.
For 100 episodes of reviews.
A little less so for me.
A little less. You came in early.
Well, I came in at the Amazon's review.
Yeah.
Amazon review.
Same.
Yeah, we did. I think we did both.
We did both.
A little bit of both.
Anyway, follow us on all the things. We'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.